Over the weekend, Trin and I braved going to the cinema to mark the end of her first week of sixth form. We saw the film Tenet, in which a technology has been developed that enables people and objects to be inverted. The effect of this is that whatever has been inverted can travel backwards through time. Naturally, there are some who want to use this for evil intent. I won't say any more as I don't want to give away any spoilers. And some who have to use the inversion technology in order to prevent or undo this. A couple of times the protagonists say to each other, "We're saving the world from what hasn't happened yet." It was a very good film and I highly recommend it, particularly if you like a film that makes you concentrate and makes you think. It's an interesting thought though, isn't it? If you had the power to go back in time in order to prevent something bad from happening, would you? Would you have a scale of events in mind? Would you want to change suffering on a massive scale? Would you want to prevent bad things happening to good people? Would you allow bad things to happen to the people you think deserve it? Would you focus on changing your own personal suffering and that of the people you're close to? Or would you feel compelled to act only if hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people were in danger? How far would you go to save yourself, the people you love, or the whole world from something that hasn't happened yet? It's a thought that's been on my mind for the last few days, even before I went to see the film. As some of you may know, one of my dogs, Sparky, died last Wednesday. He'd only been ill for a couple of days, so it's come as a big shock to the whole family. And I've been asking myself, what could I have done differently? Could I have noticed any symptoms earlier? Could I have got him to the vet sooner? Could I have allowed the vet to do more in order to find a treatment that might have saved him? Despite all these thoughts and despite the fact that we all miss him enormously, I think on the whole the answer is no. He deteriorated so quickly overnight on Tuesday and then again in the few hours he was at the vet's on Wednesday that I knew that the thing I wanted most was for his suffering to be over. I don't want to turn back time because nobody lives forever, and this is painful enough. To somehow reverse the situation and to know that we will have to go through it all again at some point in the future is not a happy thought. Over the last few days I've been thinking about a reflection I wrote several months ago called Things My Dogs Have Taught Me During Lockdown. In that piece I think I focused on spiritual food, the dogs waking up very early every morning so eager to be fed, the ways in which they would eat and then lie down and relax, the ways they enjoyed everything that was going on around them. I thought about my own eagerness or lack of to find spiritual food and my own busyness in normal times that meant that often it would be grabbed in small bites and forced down on the go. I didn't have the time to chew it over properly or to make space to rest and reflect and digest before moving on to the next thing. As I've pondered the question about whether I would change what has happened or not, I've taken the time to reflect on this experience of loss and to think about the things that Sparky has taught me in his living and in his dying this week. One of the things that sticks in my mind is Sparky's absolute trust. He seemed to have total confidence in me and he always stayed near to me. Even in this last week, he still wanted to be wherever I was. If I was working in the study, he came and sat at my feet. If I was recording, he came and sat by my feet, more quietly than his sister, who always starts rolling around on the rug to scratch her back just as the video starts. If I was in the kitchen, Sparky would lie down as close to me as possible. So working around him to prepare food was fun and sometimes dangerous. If I was in the living room, he would settle to his bed straight away until I left the room, and then he would follow me. If I went upstairs, he would lie at the foot of the stairs with his chin resting on the bottom step, waiting for me to come down again. Of course, he could be distracted by the doorbell, or the post coming through the letterbox, or the sound of the fridge opening, but otherwise he stuck as closely to me as he could. I'm thinking about that kind of confidence, trust and devotion in relationship to my own journey of faith. I know I would say that I have that kind of relationship with God, but how does that work in reality? Do I always have that complete trust and confidence that God is with me, or that if I stay as close to God as possible, I will be okay? Are there things that distract me and draw me away from God? Are there things that in practice seem to have greater importance in my life, even though I would say with my mouth that following Jesus and being near to him is the most important thing? Where is there a disconnection between what I say and what I do? Sparky's trust in me remained right to the end of his life, and he died peacefully and well. When the vet called me in, I could see that Sparky was nearing the end, and I could see in his eyes that Sparky sensed it too. I stroked him and spoke to him and told him what a good boy he was. He raised his head and rested it on the palm of my hand, and within a minute or two he had gone, with his head still in my hand. When my own time comes, I want to feel that same nearness to my Lord. I want to know that I've been as faithful to Jesus as I can possibly be, even though I'm aware that there are so many times when I let him down. There are times when I know that I'm swayed by the things around me, or the things that other people say or want me to do, even when I know in my heart that it's wrong, and that to be faithful to Jesus we need to go in a different direction. I want to have the courage to keep following, even when my instinct is to choose the easier route. I want to hear Jesus say to me, "Well done, good and faithful friend. Come into my kingdom and share my joy." One of the most important things Sparky has taught me this week is about loss. None of us like to experience loss, and people deal with it in all sorts of different ways. But I think the worst thing to do is to pretend that we're not feeling it at all. There's a standing joke in our house that I rarely cry at films unless a dog dies, and then I can't hold back. Don't talk to me about Marley and me. Needless to say, I've shed many, many tears in the last few days. As the tears have continued to flow suddenly and often without warning, I've realised that I was holding on to more loss than I thought. I cried for Sparky, of course. And I cried for Graham, who's been away on deployment for 5 weeks and there are still 8 to go and it seems interminable. I cried for Trin going back to school as it marked the end of a fabulous time that we've had together during lockdown. I cried for family and friends who seem so far away at the moment. I even cried for the Camino I walked 2.5 years ago, another experience where tears were constantly close to the surface, and I miss that experience every day. My tears have seemed to spring from a depth I didn't know was there. The Bible shows us that making room for loss and lament is an important part of life and faith. The Psalms are full of examples of people voicing their pain to God and acknowledging how much things hurt. It seems that we can only move through our pain by attending to it. The psalmist shows us so many times that only through being real with God about the things we feel can we come to a deeper awareness of God's love and faithfulness and be moved to worship and praise. The worship and praise don't suddenly wipe out the pain that we feel, but they do help us to draw on a strength greater than our own, and they do help us to sense the hope that lies beyond our grief. And so, to hope. When I think about Sparky, my overwhelming emotions are love and gratitude. I thank God that he was part of our lives for many years. I thank God for the love, joy and laughter he evoked in all of us. I thank God for lockdown, which Sparky loved. He loved us being at home together, sharing each other's company. I thank God for our new manse and especially for the new garden, as Sparky has been so happy here. He loved nothing more than a beautiful day when he could stretch himself out on the grass in the sun and soak up the rays. I thank God that his illness was short and that he didn't have to endure too much suffering. Would I turn back time? We miss Sparky so much, and of course we would love to have him with us. But the pain we feel now is part of our love. He's left a big hole in our hearts, but I would rather live with the pain I feel today than never have known and loved him at all. Turning back time would not help anything. My enduring memories are of Sparky's faithfulness and devotion, and in that he continues to inspire me every day in my journey of faith. I want my faithfulness and devotion to Jesus to be evident in all that I do every day. I want to follow Jesus so closely that I always know where he is and never leave his side. I want everything in my life to revolve around him. But most of all, I want to live and die in Jesus' arms, with a deep and peaceful awareness of just how much I too am loved and cherished. And that, I think, will be enough for me.